And perfect. Thank you, Elsa. So I guess, Joy, if you want to sort of start by giving us some background, your name, what year you graduated, maybe what majors and certificates you had, and then sort of just a little background on you and where you are.
Okay, yeah, so my name's Joey. I just graduated last May with a degree in econ and the math emphasis. I currently work as a consultant at FTI Consulting. So I specialize in the retail and consumer products industry. So we work on driving efficiency within companies, whether that's like reducing their sales and general administrative expenses or reforming their labor structure, et cetera. And yeah, excited to be here.
Cool. Thank you, Joey. And Haley, I guess a little background on you, what year you graduated, what you studied while you were here.
Yeah, I'm Haley. I graduated in 2019 with an economics major and a minor in global health, or actually a certificate. I did have a bunch of different internships in college. I was sort of all over the place. I first started interning at the Wisconsin State Capitol for a representative there. And then I ended up interning abroad in Tel Aviv for a startup company. And then my last summer, I interned on Wall Street at Guggenheim Partners in sales and trading. But now I actually work for Biden for president and specifically for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. I'm a regional organizing director. So what that means is I manage an area of Wisconsin. I manage an area of Southwest Wisconsin, as well as the organizers there. And it's all about, or it was all about, our voter outreach, reaching out to voters and getting people to turn out and vote for the Biden-Harris ticket.
Yeah, cool. Hopefully a little sigh of relief in your office, a little more relaxed now.
Yes, yeah, we're definitely all very excited.
Cool. Okay, Joey, would you want to talk a little bit about maybe some key projects or duties or sort of your typical day?
Yeah, so I guess as any consultant would say, like every day looks different. Right now, I'm actually doing a pro bono project. So we're working with Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York City and then helping them utilize their data more efficiently because they take these surveys every year and they haven't been using any of the data that tracks the progress of what the littles are doing within the program. So I'm doing that. And then I started in August and I've also been working on tear sheets on different companies, which is just if FTI Consulting finds a company that could be a potential client, they just have the consultants work through and look through the 10Ks and make like a PowerPoint deck about what problems the company is facing, who's their management, like what the company does, and just giving that to upper level management at FTI to see if it's a project worth pursuing.
Have you had any direct interactions with the client, or what does that look like with your, I guess, the structure?
Yeah, so as of right now, I've only been staffed on a Big Brothers Big Sisters project. And I have some pretty direct contact with a lot of the clients. I led a focus group with a lot of the social workers who work in Big Brothers Big Sisters New York City. And then I guess if you're working in a more traditional corporate client, you have more contact with like upper level management and C-suite people, which makes the job pretty exciting.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you both for being here. So those are two amazing panelists, young alumni, that are going to talk to you a little about their experiences tonight. Just kind of the lay of the land for the rest of our time together. We're going to go through and I'm going to ask the panelists a couple questions that we have, some things hopefully to get you guys in the audience thinking through some different ideas for careers for economics majors. But then we really welcome your questions too, because this is an opportunity for you to engage and talk with our alumni panelists. So feel free to either put things in the chat as we're talking. If you think of questions, you can kind of put them in the chat as you're thinking of them, or there's going to be time in between. I'm going to ask a couple questions and I'm going to open it up to the audience. So you guys will have a chance, if you want to unmute yourself and have some direct dialogue, that's certainly welcomed as well. So one of the first questions I have here, and I'll direct this to you, Haley. When did you know what you wanted to do after graduation, and how did you figure it out? What resources were helpful, or maybe what wasn't helpful in your career exploration process?
Yeah, so as I'm sure you remember, I was originally, so I'd come out of my summer internship at Guggenheim Partners on Wall Street, liked it. I would say I didn't love it, but sometimes you just like your first job and you have to figure it out. So I had that expectation, and I was continuing. They actually did not end up hiring any of the interns in that department for full-time jobs, so I had to start the interview process again. So in the fall of my senior year, I was starting the interview process again for financial sales and trading. So in the same boat as I'm sure a lot of you are or have been or will be, and decided as I was interviewing that, it wasn't exactly where my heart was. And I was sort of in the place where I wanted to be working on a campaign. I knew it was more uncertain and I didn't know as much what that looked like, but it seemed like a great opportunity just with the timing of graduating and being able to directly jump in and work on that. And I will say my parents were definitely helping advocate for that. So that helped. And in terms of figuring that out, a lot of what I was doing at that time when I was figuring out what I wanted to do post grad was really exploring LinkedIn. I was just looking up like Econ alumni, Wisconsin alumni, and looking at what their career trajectory was, where they worked, could I see myself through them? Was that person a potential path that I wanted to take? And also very much knowing that I want to go to grad school. I've always wanted to go, and knowing that I would be doing some sort of work in between grad school, whatever that grad school will look like. So a lot of it was just trying to see myself through other people and also not being afraid to reach out and ask for coffee chats with anyone, phone calls. I was doing a lot of that at the time just to get a better grasp on what campaign life would look like if this is something I wanted to do. And so it was a lot of that sort of grind of networking.
Cool. I guess, would you feel comfortable talking a little bit more clearly? I know I talked to a lot of students that are in a similar position. They're really interested in corporate jobs, but they're also interested in policy or government. And what was that, I guess, decision like for you, or what were some of the pluses or minuses that you looked at?
Yeah, it was tough in a way because it's not as certain as maybe taking a job on Wall Street and knowing that you're going to go live in New York City and knowing what your lifestyle is going to look like. So I was willing to do that, knowing that, I had a degree from the University of Wisconsin, that there would be other opportunity, which there always is. And so I also took that knowing that it could open many doors. So I think that as long as you know that you're choosing something that you can really, give, everything to, in that ideally you're putting yourself in a position that will open doors. And I will say the reason, hopefully I'm not frozen. But the reason why I took the original job, did I freeze? Sorry.
Your image froze, but not your audio. So we
Okay,
could
perfect. Partly why I did end up taking the specific job with Biden for president in Iowa was because I really connected with those that I interviewed with, and I really connected with my boss. And I knew that no matter what, he seemed like he was going to be an advocate for me, and that he had had really good experience that could help me like directly to maybe more a corporate political role if that was where I wanted to go. So I really thought a lot about that as I accepted my job.
I think that's a really great point, that a lot of people are thinking very specifically about what industry or what career. And for a lot of people, that isn't as important as the people that you're with, and the having people who supervise you that can help to sort of mentor you onto the next step, making sure you enjoy the people you work with every day. So I think that's really, really insightful. Cool. Okay. So Joey, I guess same question to you. When did you have a concrete idea of what you wanted to do after graduation, and maybe what was helpful or not helpful in your career search process?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really know what I wanted to do after graduation until like senior year. I think I went into econ freshman year thinking I wanted to do more policy side work or environmental studies stuff. And I had a research position within the Department of Political Science. I thought it was really interesting. And then I ended up working for Marilyn Mitchell for governor, who ran against Tony Evers in the Democratic primary in 2018. I liked the grassroots work, but I just wasn't 100% passionate about it. And so I just kind of explored a bunch of different things through interviews for internships junior year. Ended up landing on being a wealth management intern. And I kind of found out that wasn't what I wanted to do either. And then I just went to an information session about FTI consulting and networked with a lot of people there. And I ended up getting a job offer. And I really liked how all the people there were really nice. Everyone reached out to me, asking if I wanted to ask them any questions before I accepted. And the person who would have been my boss there, or who is my boss there, was super nice, really wanted to be a mentor to me. And I just figured that that was a role I wanted to take. And I like how consulting is so versatile and you're on a new project every few months. So I figured I get a lot of exposure to a bunch of different things. And if it wasn't for me, it's always an exit option. And yeah.
Yeah, cool. And this might be a really specific follow-up question, but how have you been able to get a better feel for the culture at FTI or for the people that you work with being virtual? I guess, do you have any tips maybe for how students could get to know people better virtually?
Yeah, so I started virtual and I never actually interviewed in the Chicago office. So I never met any of like the people who I'm working most directly with in person. So what I did when I first started my job was I set up coffee chats with the 18 people on my team, and I got to know them on like a personal level, because day to day you just kind of talk about work during Zoom meetings. You don't get to know them and like what their hobbies are and what they like. And so I think that's a good way to get a feel for the culture. And then I guess after you get a job offer, I think it's a good idea to just talk to the people who you'd be working with, just to get a feel for if those people you'd vibe with and work well with.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's great advice. I think a lot of people going through the interview think of it as sort of the interviewer is up here and I'm down here as the interviewee, but it's recognizing these people are going to be my coworkers. They're people I'm going to get to know with and be on the same level with as colleagues. So being able to really kind of get to know them through the interview process. And if you offer the position, I think that's great advice. Okay, so the next question we have, what strategies, and I guess I'll give this one to, I guess, direct to Joey for this one first. What strategies and resources did you utilize in searching for internships and jobs? And maybe which strategies worked for you and which ones didn't work for you?
Yeah, so I used BuckyNet and Handshake a lot when I was applying for jobs. I had one recommendation I'd give is I kind of was lazy about it and didn't apply to the jobs with cover letters. I think the competition for that's a lot more intense. And I think companies really value if you actually take the time to write a cover letter. So I learned that one the hard way. And then I actually, midway through the summer before my senior year, I got a message on Handshake by one of the recruiters at FTI Consulting, pretty much there was a women in consulting leadership forum in Denver. And so there were 200 applicants. I think they accepted 30 people, and they flew us all out to Denver. We got to learn about the company. So I think just taking advantage of things that you think could be a long shot and just like networking opportunities, companies really put a lot of effort into hiring high quality graduates out of college. So if you like put effort into showing you're interested in the company and you apply to those things that maybe you don't think you're going to get accepted to, put you in a great position just to put yourself out there and get a job through like a non-conventional way.
Yeah, cool. I think that's especially hard with everything being virtual, because the companies still have events, but I mean, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And I guess props to everybody here tonight for signing up in after hours after doing online classes to come to something like this. These are exactly the kind of things that help to get a better idea for a company, like Joy was saying. Cool. Okay. So I guess, Haley, same question for you. What strategies and resources did you utilize for your job and internship search, and what did and didn't work very well for you?
Yeah, well, for campaign specifically, just because it
Oh, now I think we have frozen audio from you. Let's try and see. Okay. While we're waiting for her to come back online, Joey, can I go back to you and just kind of ask if there were any differences in your internship search process from your full-time search process, and maybe if there was a different feel to those?
Oh, what'd you say again?
If there was a difference that you remember from your the internship search process versus the full-time job search process?
Yeah, so my internship search process, I applied to about 70 or so internships. I think I had interviews with maybe 15 or so companies. And I think I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do going into my internship. Like I just kind of wanted to I didn't know I didn't want to do political science really. And I wanted to do something more finance related. And so I think I had more of a broader internship search, and then my job search, I narrowed in. And I kind of figured I really wanted to do consulting. So I just applied to mainly consulting firms, and I was really lucky that I got my job offer pretty early. So I didn't really have to broaden my search as I moved along. But yeah, I'd
Okay.
recommend just finding, like, just applying to everything that you'd think would be interesting, because any like internship or job you have is like a learning experience, and you either learn what you do want to do or don't want to do. But
Yeah.
you go
And
either way.
sometimes that's just as important to know exactly what you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Haley, sorry we lost you there for.
I know my
for-
Wi-Fi has not been great today, so hopefully it stays and it's okay.
It really has days. Mine does. It's either a good day for Wi-Fi or it's not.
Yeah, you never know. Huh.
Yeah. So just kind of to, I guess, to remind you the job search strategies and what did and didn't work.
Yeah, well, for campaigns specifically, when I knew that, that was all via their websites. And I think that that's generally a good tip. I mean, even if you're applying to something on Handshake, is to always look at their website and get a better idea of it. Because I think Handshake's great, but you definitely want to check out sort of the other areas of where you can find more information about the companies. And then for internships, I utilize so many sort of different, I would really search everything. I would look at Handshake, I would look at LinkedIn, I would look at the website posting, sort of find information wherever I could and cast a wide net that way.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. It sounds like both Joey and Haley are both saying casting a wide net is never a bad thing. That's certainly, there can be a lot of different roles that you can be interested in, especially in economics. So kind of casting that wide net, and I'd like to say giving yourself the opportunity to turn down a role is always helpful, and that's never bad to kind of explore. So I'm going to turn it over to the audience now and see if anybody wants to either ask a question in the chat or unmute yourself and engage directly with Haley or Joey. No questions? Okay, I might, I'm just kind of curious moving forward for everyone in the audience, could you put your year in school in the chat just so we can kind of have an idea if you guys are looking more for internships or full-time jobs or what kind of experience you've had? So maybe just kind of throwing that in the chat as we move forward, what year in school you are currently. Oops. Okay. Okay, looks like quite a few juniors and sophomores. So probably a lot of people probably looking for internships now. 'Tis the season. Okay. Okay, some seniors, welcome. Cool. Okay, well, that's really helpful as we're moving forward to know kind of what direction to go. And if there's no direct questions, I'll maybe pause for just another second and make sure if you guys have anything that you wanted to know about your own search and what worked for Joey or Haley. Okay, we'll move on. Because I've got some more questions. Oh, we do have a question from the fabulous Ilsa May out there. And Ilsa asked, did either of you have internships or work experience as freshmen or sophomores? Oh, that's a great question for the audience. Let's start with, I guess, Haley, because I definitely know you did from your background.
Yeah, so my first internship was through, I don't remember the name of the course, but it was a poli-sci internship course that allowed you to have an internship with it. When I worked at the Wisconsin State Capitol, that was great if you're interested in that. I'm assuming they still have that course, hopefully. And that allowed me, it was like once a week class plus that internship, which is probably 10 hours a week. And that was a good opportunity to get credit and do an internship. And then I had then my internship abroad in Tel Aviv. It was also part of a program that I just found online as well that had provided me housing and the ability to, they matched me with a company that I was able to work at. So that was really also amazing, and something that I just found online as well. And then my Guggenheim internship was more the traditional route of finding a finance internship.
The class that you mentioned, did they place you in an internship through the class, or did you still have to search for an internship?
I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I still had to find the internship,
Okay.
but from what I remember, in the Wisconsin State Capitol, they are looking for interns every semester. So I'm pretty sure I ended up choosing the woman who I worked for, Rep. Melissa Sargent, who's actually now in the state Senate, because I had a friend that had worked for her and I'd heard really good things, and I interviewed at a bunch of different offices. So, and once again, it was all on their website, and I'm pretty sure it still is. They always are looking for interns. I know the state senators and the state reps. So I was able to find that, but I think also the class would have been willing to help me if not.
Yes. I will definitely say I've seen that too. There's a lot of internships available at the Capitol, and it can be a great way to start out, especially as a freshman or a sophomore, to just get some experience in a professional environment. Cool. And then Joy, I think you had some political experience too for your internships. I guess, do you want to talk a little about what year in school that was and how you found it?
Yeah, so I applied to the undergraduate research scholars my freshman year for my sophomore year of college. And so there you apply for a bunch of different research positions. So not quite an internship, but I was I was interested in political science or consumer science. And so I found my research mentor was examining the relationship between voter ID laws and certain voter incidences in the 2016 presidential election. I thought that was really interesting. The work was pretty mundane, but I got to present in April at the undergraduate research symposium, which I thought was really cool, and just to see like the culmination of my year's worth of work. And I thought that was pretty interesting just to get your foot in the door. Like, it looks great for jobs, but also let you know if like grad school is something you'd want to do with it. And I also had an internship summer after my sophomore year with Malin Mitchell for governor. And I just found that through either one of the emails that like I got weekly about like job opportunities. And I thought that was pretty interesting to get like a holistic view of just how a grassroots organization works. I did a lot of canvassing and a lot of just contacting and outreaching with local people, especially in like Willie Street, because that area is a lot more like liberal, and just trying to get name recognition. And even though like Malin didn't beat Tony Evers, it was still pretty cool just to be part of that. And then I was a wealth management intern summer after my junior year, and that was an interesting experience. I think wealth management is definitely something you should do after you're a certified financial planner, so you can actually give financial advice, because the employer will just have you do a bunch of like secretary-like work. But it was also pretty cool to see more of a finance side of econ as opposed to the poli-sci side that I was experiencing beforehand.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know a lot of times what I've seen from freshman or sophomore students doing internships is they're usually not quite as glamorous as some of the internships that you might get your junior year, but it's a great way to kind of pad and build your resume so that you can be competitive for some of the more glamorous internships coming up in your junior year.
Yeah,
Great.
for
So we
sure.
do have a question in the chat. Thank you to Jake, who asked, what do you think is more useful, Handshake or LinkedIn? So we'll start with you, Joey. Maybe which one have you found to be more useful for your jobs or internship searches?
I used Handshake probably 95% of the time, because I found those companies are like specifically recruiting UW students. And I use LinkedIn more for like networking with people, or like reaching out to see what someone's job is, like what their work history was and how did they get there, just because it's kind of interesting to like quote unquote like stalk people and see like, there's a job title I really want, and like what steps I need to take to get to that point in my life.
Yeah. Well, even that, I totally get that. And I feel like I use that same word too, like stalking people to see what's going on, or especially if you have an interview, looking up your interviewer. But I guess there's absolutely no shame in that. That's just called doing your research and
Yeah.
knowing what you're getting yourself into. So I think, yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
just put yourself in private mode and I don't know that you're looking at their
yep, look
profile.
away, search away. Okay. What about you, Haley? What would you say is more useful, or what had been more useful for you, Handshake or LinkedIn? Or I guess if there's another website too, feel free
Well,
to throw
I'll
that
add
in.
something to what we were also just talking about and say that if, like, I do know that when you're a freshman, sophomore looking for internships, they are not the most glamorous, but that doesn't mean you should not take anything out of it. You should definitely inquire and like see what you'll have ownership over. The one thing that I really liked about the representative that I worked for was she let me work on a piece of policy, which is something I was interested in. I still am interested in. And that was really cool. So definitely make sure to like ask the questions too of really what you will be doing and take ownership of, because I still think that as freshmen and sophomores, you can totally own something in the internship or position that you're doing. And then in terms of Handshake and LinkedIn, both are useful in different ways. For me, I probably use LinkedIn more because I was looking more out of state generally. I found that in Handshake, it was really good for jobs that were more in the Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago area. I'm from the East Coast, so I was looking a lot more on the East Coast. So that was more LinkedIn. So I would usually sort it in, or think of it in more of a geographic way, but it just depended.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess piggyback for Joy, were you looking specifically for certain geographical regions when you were looking for your jobs and internships?
Internships, I just wanted to be primarily in Madison, and then I broadened my search to do like Minneapolis and Chicago. But yeah, I was an in-state student, so it would have been nice to stay close to home or just be like a couple hours away. Yeah.
And so I mean, this is something I hear a lot. Either I'm from Wisconsin and I want to get as far from Wisconsin as possible, or I'm not from Wisconsin and I want to get out of state. So I think that is a little bit of a challenge because a lot of companies and organizations, for them, usually it's expensive to recruit really far away. So do you have any tips kind of piggybacking on that, Haley, for what worked for you other than just kind of using LinkedIn to just find more of geographic variety in your job and internship searches?
Yeah, well, I think you probably don't have that flexibility as much at the beginning. You just have to get some experience under your belt. Probably more in the Madison area. But then I think that like generally when I was looking for campaign jobs, there were really only a few main areas I could be in. But knowing you might not be in the exact physical place you want to be immediately, but you can work towards that. That was something I always thought about. Like, okay, I can start in Madison, start in Milwaukee, or start in Chicago, wherever. And a lot of companies will let you like move a year in or so. And I have a lot of friends now that are relocating to different cities. And also we're virtual now, so it's a little different. But there is flexibility like a year or two in. So you don't feel like just because you're in a city, you're stuck there forever.
Yeah. Okay. Great advice. Yeah. And it's a lot different with the pandemic. I know I talked with Ilsa about like, Ilsa, we should be doing student appointments from the Bahamas. We should just go down there and work virtual somewhere on a beach. So yeah, kind of a moot point, I guess, in today's world. Okay. So yes, please continue to put questions in the chat as we go along. If something pops into your head, share it for our wonderful contestants, but we will move on because I have some questions for you guys. We'll do this one for Haley is what should students focus on while they're in school to be competitive? So if you're looking for jobs or internships, are there specific courses or knowledge, leadership opportunities, a certain GPA or things? I guess, are there things that you would recommend students focus on if they're looking at getting good jobs or internships?
Yeah. Well, the first thing for me that I focused on was GPA. I knew when I wanted to go into more finance originally that was sort of the main competitor, right? Like you need a good GPA just to get through the screen and in the door. So that was something I focused on as well. But I think in addition to that, having experience and showing ambition in college is huge. Like showing that you're able to be, take your courses, you're able to have extracurriculars into your clubs and take on an internship just shows that you can handle a lot and that you know, are ambitious, as I've said before. And I know that I've done a lot of hiring just 1 year out for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and for Biden for president. And when I'm looking at resumes and cover letters of students, I like to see people that can take a lot on, you know, even if they didn't have that perfect GPA, that's fine if they, you know, seem to be really involved and they showed like, you know, a lot of promise and effort and ambition. So I would say just, you know, making sure that you're showing that you're multifaceted in that way.
Yeah, I feel like Madison is such a big place, and sometimes that makes it hard almost because there's so many opportunities. You guys have both kind of talked about some different things that you connected with, or some different groups or opportunities you connected with on campus while you were here. I think taking advantage of those is important, but some of it is just sifting through all the noise to find advantage or to find opportunities like that. Cool, cool. So Joey, same question for you. I guess, what do you think students should focus on to be competitive for jobs and internships while they're in school?
Yeah, so this September, I reviewed resumes for the internship program. And I think in management consulting, it's more like formulaic of you. If you have like this experience, you get this many points and this, you know, if you have certain criteria in your resume, we like rank you. And so the main focuses are majors. We want majors that are more like quant heavy. So econ, finance, accounting, etc. And then like basically aim for like above a 3.5 GPA is ideal. And then yeah, just show that you're well-rounded. Like if you're on an exec board member of a certain club, or you're a part of a committee, or you had like prior internship experience. And I work specifically in retail consulting. So even if like you're a sales associate at like JCPenney's or something, like it shows that you have some knowledge in the industry. So even if it's not like corporate level knowledge, you can provide some interesting perspective to what we do as a company.
Yeah, great. So I'll follow up. So you mentioned 3.5, which was one of the questions in the chat, was about a specific range of what we define as a good GPA. I'll kind of put that to you, Haley, maybe with, you mentioned some of the resumes that you looked at. What would be sort of a range of a good GPA, or what would you call good?
Yeah, well, I would say what we were looking at in terms of campaigning, yeah, probably 3.5 and above, I would say good would be good. I think finance holds it to a different level, probably a higher standard than that, but it just really dependent on the position and really what they're looking for in terms of that.
So kind of back to Joey, you mentioned a 3.5. Are there things that could compensate if somebody didn't have specifically a 3.5? I guess activities or things that would help to boost their resume so that they would be considered sort of higher than what if they just had their normal GPA without additional activities or things?
Yeah, so I think definitely showing initiative, like if you're in like a certain extracurricular that requires a lot of time and you're like maybe like a president or a co-president, that really helps your resume a lot. And then maybe if you're just part of like different clubs, but we just kind of want to see more than just the active member level. Like if you're a step above that, even if it's just for like doing a fundraiser or something, that really puts you a step above just someone who has a really good GPA and like not that much experience other than that, because we don't want someone who's just gonna be like doesn't have a life outside of school, if that makes sense.
Yeah, being able to show that you take initiative, that you are talking with people, interacting with people, responsible for things, organizing things.
Yeah.
Right. And we've had some questions coming in the chat. So we have one from Miles, who is a freshman and he's currently econ. Not sure if he's going to stay with it or not. And he's wondering about looking into econ related internships or waiting until he's more confident in what he's interested in. So I guess how sure of your interest should you be before you seek out an internship? I'll direct that one to you, Haley, maybe if you. would
Yeah,
like to take a
I
stab.
don't think you can figure out what you're interested in unless you try stuff out. Some good advice that I got when I was young, a little younger, and trying to figure it out was so much of this is figuring out what you don't like, and then you can figure out what you like through that. So by trying different internships or even different courses, different extracurriculars, at least you can tell yourself, no, that was not for me. That's not what I want, and it gives you a little bit of direction, because there's so much out there, especially at a school like Madison, when there are just so many opportunities. So I would say, just look into an internship that would interest you at the minimum. And then from there, you can figure out sort of the pros and cons and if that's something you're actually interested in.
Yeah, yeah, because you guys have both had internships in very different industries. So I definitely don't think you're married to a specific industry because you have an internship in that area. I'll say, did you have anything to add to that, Joey, or what do you think as far as waiting until you're more confident in what you want to do to get an internship?
Yeah, I think if you have that opportunity, I'd for sure take an internship. And then, yeah, just as Haley said, it's just about like learning what you do and don't want to do. And there's also, I was part of Women in Econ when I was in college, and we have a lot of, I think that in ESA have a lot of speakers from different companies come and talk. So you can gauge more about what you think would, like what sorts of jobs or industries would pique your interest. So even if like you don't want to commit so far as to do an internship, I'd recommend just for sure talking to different people or listening to different people talk about what their job is, so you can try and hone in on what you're really interested in.
Okay, awesome, thanks. So another question from the chat from Justin, who's interested specifically in management consulting. So we'll kind of direct this one to you, Joey, if you're okay, more of the consulting angle.
Yeah.
Are there specific classes or experiences that would be important to highlight? Maybe not necessarily just doing, but to highlight in a cover letter or an interview for a consulting position?
Yeah, so I think at my firm, we're specifically interested in people who have a lot of like quant heavy experience. So I really drew upon like my math emphasis within my econ degree, and employers really impressed I took like calculus 3 and linear algebra, just because none of like the finance applicants had taken those classes. And then also like I took econometrics as well. And I think that set me apart, and just also showing that you're a problem solver is pretty big thing, because that's pretty much all we do in the job is just solve different companies' problems.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought up classes, because that was something I wanted to talk about too. Because I know those are really tangible ways, especially while you're in school, to explore careers and see what you're interested in and maybe stand out. Haley, are there any classes that you have used from being an econ major, or classes that you would recommend somebody should take if they're interested in a similar role to the one you're doing now, or maybe ones you wish you took?
Yeah, well, there's like so many amazing classes, so it was always hard for me every semester to decide.
That's a great answer.
But I don't know if there's one class specifically that prepared me for this current job, but now that the campaign is over, I'm thinking a lot about different roles in the White House and the administration, and I would say that's more guided by the classes I took. When you're like through your beginner and intermediate courses and can choose advanced courses, definitely choose stuff that you're really interested in. So I did healthcare economics, and I think about that all the time because I think I want to do something in that realm, in the administration. So that was really good for me. Law and econ was good for me because it showed me, at first I thought I 100% want to go to law school, and then I took that class and thought I'm doubting that a little bit, but it's still in the realm of possibilities. I just need some more experience to know that. So yeah, I would recommend choosing electives that really pique your interest.
Oh, it looks like maybe Elizabeth, it looks like she's muted. She's making a face like, oh no. Thanks so much, Haley, for highlighting that. So one question that I had, I put this in the chat actually. you both mentioned a lot about like reaching out to alums and, you know, reaching out via LinkedIn. And I meet with students all the time that are wanting to do informational interviews or like those networking conversations, but they're kind of like apprehensive, like, why would an alum want to talk to me? How do I even reach out? How does this process go? So could you guys, maybe I'll continue with you, Haley, since it sounded like, you know, you did a lot of networking for the kind of like political campaign. Like, what advice do you have? How does this, like, break it down a little bit if you both can, to say how this process kind of works so people maybe aren't quite so scared of it?
Yeah, so I'll preface it by saying, like, worst case scenario, you send something on LinkedIn and you don't get a response, but why not try? And usually people don't respond just because they're too busy. It's not because they don't want to necessarily connect. But the way that I would do it is I would try to sort by someone that I had a connection with. So I would start with Wisconsin alumni, ideally econ if you can, and sort of start the message off by being like, I'm also a Badger, or something about Wisconsin, and then saying that, you're interested and would love if they had a few minutes over the next week or so to speak about X, Y, and Z, or touch base about X, Y, and Z, something along those lines. And I know now, being on the receiving end, I'm more than happy to give a few minutes to like an alumni. I'm more likely to do it with an alumni than I am a random person that messages you. So just keep that in mind, even if it's like a high school alumni, someone that is from your area, you could use that. Some sort of point of connection, I think, is a lot better than like sort of just random and out there. But you could do that if you said, I'm specifically really interested in that company. I just know, based off of me and my friends now who are getting a lot of these messages, we're just more likely to respond to someone that we have some sort of connection with in some sort of way. So I would recommend that. And also just sort of getting right to the point of like, this is how I'm connected to you in some sort of way, or know you, this is what I'm interested in, and can, do a few minutes to speak, something like that. Because no one really has time to like go through a whole conversation. They'll probably just be like, yes, does this work for you? Or yes, tell me a time that works for you.
Is there anything that I guess I hesitate to use the word impress, because I don't want students to think that they have to be really impressive or come with anything particularly impressive. But maybe, what are you expecting when you're talking to students, or what do you talk about, or what are good questions to ask?
Yeah, I think coming with questions is an important thing, right? Like showing that
questions.
like right, like you would be surprised that people get on and expect you to lead the whole thing, which is fine. Like, more than happy to talk about the position, but you should be the one like coming with the questions of sort of maybe what is, ask the person people generally to talk about themselves. So asking them about their position, what do they do? They probably can't like help you in a direct way. So it's generally like getting to know them and making that direct connection.
Awesome. What about for you, Joy, with like, have you had students reach out to you, and what have been sort of good conversations or topics that you thought were helpful for the students, or allowed you to kind of talk a little bit more and give the student a better idea about FTI and your role?
Oh yeah, so I guess since I just started in August, I personally haven't had anyone reach out to me yet. But yeah, I did reach out to a lot of people.
She hasn't had anybody reach out yet.
I had a lot of like, I talked to a lot of people before I accepted my job, and I think, yeah, just going with like the first line of, hey, I noticed you're like a fellow Badger, or something like that. Do you want to talk about, X, Y, and Z? And like, they're only like 15-minute chats, so like it's not very intimidating at all, and it's not even, an interview on your part. You're just interviewing that person, and it's very friendly and informal. And I think, yeah, having a list of questions is definitely, I found that beneficial when I was talking to people. And they can be as basic as like, what's the day-to-day role of your job, or what's your favorite and least favorite part, or how'd you get to where you are now? And yeah, just very simple questions, just to help, guide, your career progression and what you think you do and don't want to do.
Is there anything you learned through the process? Because it sounds like you had quite a few coffee chats with people, both once you started your job and also before your job. If you could go back to the first time, young Joey, the first time you talked to somebody, an alum, or had some kind of a coffee chat, is there anything that you would change or advice that you would give to yourself?
I would say I'm just a very like nervous person a lot of the time, and I'd be like, just don't be so nervous because like it's not intimidating whatsoever. And then yeah, just being really like open-minded and also reflective of like, is this something you could see yourself doing, and like, is this something that seems applicable to your interests? That's what I would tell myself.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's a really important point, especially with the pandemic and the competition for roles. There's still a ton of roles out there, and there's still opportunities, but making sure you're showing the interest and taking the initiative. And I think that's a big part of it is reaching out and being professional, being polished, having questions is always really important. Okay, and we're kind of coming to the end of our hour-long chat. So I do have kind of my last question, and then I'll open it back up to the audience for any final questions that they have. So my last question, I'll start with you, Joey. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in a career in your field or at your firm? What would be the sort of the number one thing someone could do?
I feel like I've already touched on that, but I guess I would say be really like interested in solving problems, take a lot of initiative with your like college career, because I know like my freshman year was kind of intimidated to get internships and research experience, and I just lifeguarded summer after my freshman year, which is a great experience. But I think I learned a lot by doing a bunch of different roles, and I think especially in consulting, you don't necessarily have to have experience in consulting to get a job in consulting, because they want to see that you're flexible with certain things and that you're just a good problem solver and you can learn pretty fast and on the fly. So yeah, that's it.
I think that's a really great point, especially to the person earlier that had the question about getting an internship in a certain area, even if he's not sure what to do. It's to go into consulting is to really show that you're flexible and can do a lot of different things. Is there any, I guess, specific advice that you would give now, sort of coming out of college and being on the other side as an alum, about the process or anything that you've learned through that?
Yeah, I would just emphasize like being a well-rounded student. And I think people say that GPA doesn't matter a lot. I think it matters less for the job search than for grad school, but I think especially in like consulting and investment banking, they really do care about your GPA when you're applying. So I guess a good way to stand out, and especially taking like challenging classes, like all the advanced electives I took, about like I took a big data class, and I took behavioral econ, and then econometrics and all those math classes. So I think that's a pretty good way to stand out.
Okay, so you guys have both mentioned some awesome classes and some of my favorite econ classes. So I'm just going to ask you, Joey, what was of the econ classes that you took while you were here, which one has been your favorite? Or which one
I
did
liked
you?
law and econ the most. I thought that was like, it wasn't quant heavy at all. I never thought about economics that way. It hasn't been really applicable in my job, but I think I learned a lot about it. And I mean, law school does sound interesting. And I think and Dan Quinn's pretty cool. So I definitely recommend that class.
Yeah, I will say law and econ is one of our more popular classes. If anyone's interested, it is a great upper level elective. So I guess I'll start with that one with you, Haley, if there's any particular class or which one you enjoyed the most while you were here.
Yeah, well, I would say anything with David Johnson. I loved him as a professor. I'm sure you all know of him. But my specific favorite class was healthcare economics with Professor Hansen. Small class. We wrote a thesis, I'm pretty sure, at the end. And I really loved the class.
Great. We have one question in the chat. I'm going to go to that one just because it's related to kind of what we were talking about. And then I'll come back to you, Haley, because I'm curious to know about your advice. But I guess we'll kind of continue with Haley, which we kind of touched on this one a little bit with Joey. But Haley, what class has been most helpful for you in your day-to-day? Have there been any classes that you've taken?
I mean, I think generally like intermediate micro and macro was really helpful to the way that I think, and even the beginner classes like that all those foundational classes were just like really gave me the foundation to be able to synthesize and think through things. And I think like a lot of what I've done in this job is problem solving. I think that's similar to a consulting job too. And those classes really like allowed me to give me the foundation to do so. So I know that's not one specific class and super helpful, but knowing that like those classes do translate in the end.
Yeah. I'll say 101, 102, 301, 302, they're maybe not the most fun and engaging classes all the time, but they really kind of lay that foundation so that you can engage in some of those more upper level classes because to really follow what's going on in those upper level classes, you need that foundation. So if you're in any of those classes right now, the micro or macro classes and kind of not totally loving them, hang with it because you're getting some really great skills through them. Gonna sort of wrap up here with my questions with you, Haley, and just wondering what advice you'd give to someone who's interested in a career in your field, maybe getting into campaigns, and then more generally, if you'd have any advice that you'd give about the job search process.
Yeah, well, I think just like giving it your all and not being afraid to reach out to whoever and sort of apply and cast a wide net. And I know that can be intimidating, but really just taking as many interviews.
Okay, I think I'm not sure if we've got you muted, Haley. We're having some trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go. It just kind of.
Did I cut out the whole time? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. What I was saying is, for campaigns, the best advice that I could give would be to cast a wide net, like as many interviews as possible. Just really feeling out every campaign. From what I've seen, I've really only been on one now, but in a lot of different states. Is
quite a campaign to be on.
It's been very wild. Is all about the team that you're on and all about that team culture on a campaign. So really, just like applying wherever you can, interviewing wherever you can, and getting that feel for it and talking to as many people as possible.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. And I do want to give one more chance if anybody wants to unmute themselves and just kind of have a conversation with Haley and Joey, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So I should have just said this a little bit ago, but when you were talking about reaching out to alumni, someone from your hometown or a club, I totally get like the first thing that you said, and then you sound a little spiel about yourself. But what do you say, or how do you begin to basically leverage that relationship into an interview? Do you ask, what are the job opportunities, or someone's email in HR, or what? How do you go about that?
Yeah, any one of you?
Yeah, so I'd
Joey or
say
Haley did.
Oh yeah, for like informational interviews, I guess since I'm an entry level worker, I don't really have any power to give people interviews. I would just probably direct them to the HR site. But I think it definitely is like a good opportunity to learn about like the company. And then if they have maybe like a job application deadline is like, January 1st, and then you like have an informational interview like right around that time, and you have an interview a little later, you can leverage that informational interview within your formal interview to show that you've taken initiative to research the company and you're pretty serious about the role.
Sweet, thank you.
Thanks. Anything you wanted to add, Haley?
I think, most of the time that person won't be able to directly help you get like an interview or the job, but you also never know who's going to have job openings when and where, and at least like you're on their mind, top of mind. The one thing that I will say though is the follow-up is so important. If you don't send an email follow-up thanking them, whatever, that's probably never gonna like amount to anything. So you definitely want to ask for their contact information and send them an email and keep contact going.
Yeah, I'll kind of add to that. Typically when you are networking or talking to someone or an alum, don't expect to get a job offer out of it. Don't expect to, you should go into it with sort of, it's gonna sound super cheesy, but an innocence of heart, and not expecting a tit for tat out of it. Like, oh, I'm gonna talk to you and then I'm gonna get like an interview. What you get out of that experience can be really helpful for you. So let's say you talk to somebody who maybe doesn't have any pull with the organization, but you ask them, especially in consulting, like, what clients are you working with right now? What skills do you need for your role? So then when you're going to your interview, you can talk about, like, I noticed that Big Brothers and Big Sisters is one of your clients. I actually was a big brother myself. And that's where you can really have that insider information to be able to connect. Sometimes they might put in a good word for you, depending on the structure of the organization. They might have the ability to refer you, but you don't know. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a good use of your time. That's something that you can put in your resume that does, or in your cover letter, sorry, that does look good for HR, because that helps you stand out, because it shows HR when they're screening applicants. It shows that you genuinely have interest and you took the time to talk to people. So I would say networking and reaching out is always helpful, but it's not going to be a direct line to, I networked, now I'm going to get an interview. It's just going to be kind of icing on the cake to show how engaged you are and to help you be more successful and give you that edge against other candidates. That was a good question, though. Any other questions? We've just got a couple minutes left. If anyone else has things they're thinking about.
I have a quick question about networking with your professors, particularly, because I feel like that's the closest link that you have with professionals who are already in the industry. I guess if either of the two speakers have worked with any professors or researched with them, or have any experience, working with professors, how did you approach it? And, what, I guess, capacity did you work with them in? And if that was instrumental in going forward with, or even if you did not work with them directly, if that was instrumental at all in, getting any internships, or I guess just being constantly in touch with them after you graduated as well.
Yeah, so I personally, when I did my research project, I worked with one of the professors in the political science department, and I got it through undergraduate research scholars. So you just like email, yeah, they give you a book of potential projects and professors who are looking for undergrad research students. And so I just applied and talked to him for a little bit, and he told me about the project, and I networked with him that way. And then I was also part of Women in Econ, which is a program where we have a lot of like women leaders come and talk, and a lot of times they're professors. And that was a nice way to just talk to someone in more of a casual context without it being like intimidating, like at the end of class or asking a question in the middle of lecture. And I thought that was like a pretty interesting way to like just get to know people. I personally didn't leverage that network into finding my job, but I think it's interesting to see like the more academic side of econ and what it's like getting your PhD. I know Professor McKelvey is really like accessible, and he's really, because he's just done econ his whole life. And so I think he has a really interesting perspective, and I'm sure other professors would be more than happy to talk to you about what they've done with their econ degree.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll second that. I thought it was really important for me to have good relationships with my professors, and I still stay in touch with some of them. They might not necessarily be able to advise or help you because they've gone one career, but they do know people that have gone down paths that you're interested in. And it's just nice to have that support, and also knowing that there'll be a recommendation if you need it is really key, and something I definitely thought about, like if I'm applying to grad schools or going to, some sort of job that would want or warrant a recommendation from a professor.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are at time. There is one more question in the chat. Would either of you feel comfortable, or both of you feel comfortable sharing your email with students if they wanted to follow up with you?
Oh yeah, I can just type it in.
Yeah, perfect. And I will also echo Haley's suggestion to make sure if you do talk to an alum or our wonderful alum panelists today, just make sure it's really good form to follow up with a thank you email within 24 hours, just thanking them for taking the time to talk to you. That also really helps to build and grow the relationship, just to show your appreciation. So thank you both. Thank you everyone for attending and for coming and for asking questions and showing an interest in careers in economics, because it's a very wide and vast ocean of things you can do with economics. And just a huge thank you to Haley and Joey for your time tonight and for joining us. So thanks everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye guys.